in preparing this session, we realized that there was a lot to share with faculty. So we want to make sure that we make this hour as productive as possible. I will be doing a demo of different features, specific features on Zoom. All of you are welcome to continue to ask questions in the chat. My colleague Derek will be monitoring the chat and he will be letting me know as questions come up. He is from the
Yes,
ePortfolio team. Yes.
we do have a question.
Yep.
Candace asked, will we review captioning in level 1 or level 2?
That's a good question. The captioning is something that if you saw the listserv is still in the works. We're trying to get as much information as possible so that we can share that. As of right now, we will not cover that in detail. However, the Center for Teaching and Learning will be communicating more information as that becomes available from CUNY Central. So thank you. Going back to what we will do today, you are encouraged to follow along, obviously, as I continue to show and demo all of the features. However, in case you do want to focus on something and you just don't have enough time right now, we will be providing the recording of this session so that you can then later watch that and follow that step by step. You do not have to watch the entire session all over again. I encourage you, I will share the link with you, and then I encourage you to look at the specific area where you want to follow along step by step, and then that way you will be able to move ahead. And a recording of this session will be available, hopefully by the end of the day today. Okay. Some quick points. Again, in preparing this, we realized there were key questions as faculty were asking. The Zoom Virtual Assistant Help Desk provides lots of resources and how-to videos. There's plenty on their website, and you can see the URL there. I will show you the Zoom document in just a moment so that you are able to see what that looks like. But there's plenty of resources and even short videos. That's one of the things that I enjoyed particularly the most. There's also a recurring question about Zoom cloud storage for faculty and staff. And we heard from IT that it's limited, and each user, it's recommended to limit their usage of cloud recording to 1 gigabyte. We will go over that during the session, and obviously local recording, it's recommended over cloud recording. And an option for doing that, because a lot of faculty have expressed concerns of maxing out their storage on Blackboard, you don't have to upload the videos in your Blackboard course. You can simply set up your Dropbox account that it's also provided by CUNY, and you will be able to upload all of your videos there so that you can share with your students. There's also a link, an email address that faculty are encouraged to write to in case they have specific questions. It's zoomhelp@lagcc at lagcc.cuny.edu. So in case you have a specific questions, whether it's an issue accessing your account or anything that you have with Zoom, you can always write to them. The IT area will respond to you. Give me 1 second. Share. I want to share this with you. The Zoom document that I mentioned on the link it's right there. You can go ahead and let me just put this on the chat. If you copy and paste that URL from the chat, you will be able to access this document. As I mentioned a moment ago, when we put together this training, we realized that a lot of these resources we wanted to share with you during the session. So we put together this document so that you can have this for yourself. This is a public document. You're free to share it with others if you want. So, and we will continue to update this as we move along as well.
Pablo, real quick, what is the storage size for faculty in Dropbox? Do you know by any chance?
That's a good question. And I think Ramang from IT is here, and maybe he can jump in with that question on the chat. That's a good question. I believe you have 1 TB, but I may be wrong. I'm going to double check. If you can help me follow up, Derek. Raman should be here from IT, but if not, I'll follow up with folks as well. Raman, if you're listening to us, please jump in on the chat so that you can let us know. The question is, what is the storage capacity on CUNY Dropbox?
It's 1 T.
1 TB?
Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. There you go, 1
No.
TB, so plenty of space to upload to Dropbox. And as I will show a moment later, you can simply share a link to that folder in your Blackboard course, and that will make things much more smoothly for your students.
It's Ramesh, actually. My name is Ramesh.
Ramesh, thank you very much, Ramesh. Thank you.
No.
So, Derek, continue to let me know in case there's any questions that come up on the chat. This is the time now to get on our Zoom accounts. As you can see on the screen, to access your CUNY Zoom account, the address that you go to is cuny.zoom.us. And it's important that you consider downloading the client as well, in case you are able to do that on your computer. It's very helpful because it will allow you to access your meetings and all of your information without having to log in all the time. That is an option highly recommended, but the option that we're going to look at right now is accessing it on the web browser. Again, the address is cuny.zoom.us. And once you get there, you will, as you can see on the screen, you will find the sign in button on the lower right-hand side. And then you will use your CUNY login credentials, and you see them right on the screen. It's your first name, that, the last name, and then the 2 digits, which are your 2 digits of your CUNY EMPL ID at login.cuny.edu. This is important because at least we've seen lots of faculty who ask, who report having an issue because they're trying to access it with their Outlook email addresses. Every user should use this login credentials, and this is also the same for students. And then this is the email, the URL for accessing tutorials as well, in case you need any particular help there. But again, on the Zoom account, you will go ahead and log in. The first thing that we're going to do, if you're doing that, that's great. Go ahead and log in with your CUNY login credentials on cuny.zoom.us. And then the first thing that I'm going to walk you through in a moment will be going over all of this settings on your account. We're going to take a look at the settings so that you are able to review all of this before scheduling your first appointment. So,
Pablo, real quick, is the PowerPoint going to be available for everyone later?
Is the what?
The PowerPoint.
The PowerPoint is available already, and let me show you where that is. If you go to the resource document and the link I posted on the chat, you will be able to see under Zoom trainings, you will be able to see the link right here for accessing the training presentation for level 1, which is what I'm going over right now. Okay. So it's a cuny.zoom.us, and you will be presented with this screen right here to log in. You will simply go ahead and click on sign in. And then if you did not sign in before, you will be taken to the screen where you log in. Again, with those login credentials from CUNY, first name, that, last name, and the 2 digits of your the 2 digits, the last 2 digits of your CUNY EMPL ID at login.cuny.edu. And then your CUNY first password. After that, you will be able to log in and get to your account. This is going to be the account profile that you will see as soon as you get to your page. The first section that we're going to tackle here will be the settings, and it's recommended that you go over this before scheduling any meetings. Now, if you have already scheduled meetings, it's fine. It's important that you review this. Just a reminder that we're recording this, so we will provide the recording for later as well in case you want to revisit this. In the settings, you will see lots of different options here. But the ones that you're going to look at specifically are require a passcode when scheduling a meetings, and you just want to make sure that that it's on right here. So I went to settings, and then I scroll down, and then the option is right here. All you have to do is just make sure that the option is on, and then as you can see, the settings will be saved automatically. So you just want to make sure that you review that. It's recommended that you always use a passcode for security purposes, obviously, and it's always helpful to have that, especially when having your classes on Zoom. This other option right here is also important. Embed the passcode in invite links for one-click join. And what this does is if you're choosing to use a passcode for your meeting, and when you send the URL for students to join you in your session, what this will do is it will encrypt and include the passcode in the invite link. And that way, users can join with just one click without having to enter the passcode. You may know that sometimes students may click on the link and then they're asking you, what's the password? It's asking me for a password. If you enable this, you will be able to encrypt the passcode in the link, so that way users only have to click once and they don't have to enter the passcode. It's always helpful to enable this. And again, you simply make sure that it's on. If it's already on, that's good. If we keep scrolling down, this is a section that I recommend at a later time you visit in detail, but we're only providing some key recommendations here. Let me just jump straight to the chat. In Meeting in Basic, you can always look for the chat feature, and this allows the participants to send messages. For instance, right now, all of you are interacting in the chat. My colleague Derek is helping me monitor that. You're able to interact with one another. So it's always helpful to enable that. I'm not sure if by default it will be off, but it's always helpful to just check that. The private chat right here allow meeting participants to send private one-on-one messages. So if you don't want your students to be sending one another messages that you're not seeing directly, then you might want to disable this, okay? By default, if you allow the chat feature in your classes, then participants will be able to send a chat message either to you as a host or to everyone, but not to another individual per se. In some cases, students may be chatting, hey, what's the answer to question 1 and something like that. So if you don't want participants to have that one-on-one conversation via chat, you can disable this, okay? The file transfer, it's also important in the chat, as we will see a little later. Not only can you send messages, but you can also enable the sharing files. If you have a Word document or a PDF that you want to share, you can do that, and you enable that option if you enable that option right here. The cool thing about this now is that Zoom allows you for specific file types. So let's say that you want to allow users to share only Word documents because that's all you're going to be working on. So that means that users will be able to share only that. They want to share a PDF or they want to share an image, they may not be able to do that. And if you check this option right here, again, this is all in the settings page, file transfer, allow for specific file types, and then you will be prompted to put in the specific types that you want. Polling, it's another option that it is recommended, and a lot of people have asked. Level 2 will go over that, the level 2 workshop, and that allows you to basically run a basic poll on your session, and you have to make sure that you enable that option here. The nonverbal feedback, as we will see in just a moment, is also is also very helpful, especially in distance learning teaching, to make sure that students are engaged. So the nonverbal feedback will allow your participants to provide that nonverbal feedback by choosing specific emojis. So for instance, a thumbs up or a thumbs down, or, you know, slow down, or can you repeat some things like that, that will allow you to interact with your students much more easily. So it's always helpful to have that. And we're going to take a look at that in just a moment when we look at the in-meeting settings. Allow participants to rename themselves. This option is very helpful, and this will essentially allow your students to rename themselves during the call. This happens often, especially when I see students join my class and they are joining from someone else's desktop, or they are joining from their phones, and all that it says it's iPhone. And sometimes I don't know who they are because they don't have their videos on. So I ask them to rename themselves for the purposes of attendance, for the purposes of me interacting with them. So if you enable this option, they will be given the option to rename themselves, let's say from iPhone to my name is Pablo, something like that. So again, all of these options are on the settings on your account. The breakout groups is also an option right here that we recommend you turn on. That is what the level 2 workshop will cover. All on your settings page, it's recommended that you visit this setting options and then make sure that you turn on or off, depending on what you think you will be using Zoom for.
Okay, Pablo, we have 2 questions.
Yeah.
Well, 3. Okay, so first one is, where do you, like, is there like a guest link for users who do not have Zoom accounts?
Yeah, so any user will be able to log in to join a meeting without necessarily logging in. There's no need to have a guest link as in Blackboard Collaborate. As long as you give them the link, they will be able to join.
Okay, and then the second question is, can you save the chats to review, like after, you know, like the meeting is over?
Yes, so right here, if, let's see. There's an option right here for auto save chats. And what this will do is this will save the chat automatically along with any video recording if you chose to record locally. And it will give you a simple text file of all of the chat interactions. So it's helpful to have that, especially if you are asking lots of questions to your students. The only caveat that I've always seen with this, though, me personally using this, is all of the messages are in chronological order, regardless of whether they were private messages to you or to the larger class. So everything is in there. So if you want to just look for something, you just do Control F and then you start looking for a specific message. But yes, the option right here, you can enable this and it will save all of your chats automatically for that particular setting. Yeah.
Okay, and also, like for attendance purposes, after students leave the meeting, is there any setting that captures like their attendance?
I will show in a moment the breakout, the reporting on usage, and that will give you some sense of in terms of attendance. What I personally do is just take a screenshot of my participants list. Zoom will give you that information, but it's always tricky because first of all, you have to make sure that all of your students are named with their first name or last name, like the example I gave a moment ago when a student may be joining the session with the iPhone and then it only says iPhone and the student does not have a video on. So Zoom will tell you there's a user with the name iPhone and you will not know who that user is. So that's why it's important to ask them to rename themselves. Zoom will also report in case a user is having problems logging into in case a user has joined multiple times to the session because they have had Wi-Fi problems. So for instance, if the user has Wi-Fi problems and has to join multiple times, Zoom will show you all of that information. So you can access that information, and as I will show in just a moment, you just have to look at it very carefully.
Okay. Yeah, and there's like a few more questions that came up. Like if you require a password, do you have to create a new invite for it?
That's a good question. Maybe Ramesh can confirm this. If you have I assume the question is if you have created a session without a passcode, but then you enable the passcode, will that update the link? Correct?
It seems like it.
Yeah. So Ramesh, I'll defer to you in case that's a better question for you.
Hey, Pablo, it's Joe Doberchair. That was my question. In other words, first I didn't put a passcode required.
Mm-hmm.
I created a link for every Monday and Wednesday evening.
Mm-hmm.
So now if I enable the passcode, even though it's embedded, do I need to recreate the, the invite and the link? That was really my question.
My suggestion there would be just to share the updated link with the students. You don't have to recreate the entire, reschedule the meeting. You will see on the meeting itself that you can simply click on that link and you can send that URL to your students. That would be my suggestion, just to be on the safe side.
Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I want to go back quickly to the closed captioning. This is the option to enable that. Again, we understand that CUNY Central is working on some type of service that will allow for closed captioning, automatic closed captioning on Zoom for CUNY. So as soon as we receive more information about that, we will make sure to share that with faculty. As of this point, at least I don't have any information. And then the virtual background, it's one more option. All of this again on the settings, because it will allow you to, in case you don't want to show your background and you choose to turn your camera on, there's multiple options for you to choose from, and you can simply put something on the background. And even LaGuardia has shared some images that I will share a little later. So again, all of this.
Yeah.
Go ahead, say.
Oh, sorry,
Darren.
Paulo. So Eleanor asked, how do you create a link that just allows a student to click here?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, how do you create a link and then students will be able to do that? The students will be able to use that link to join the session. Yes, we're gonna go over that in just a moment.
Okay, and then May asked, is there like a whiteboard to like write on Zoom?
There is a whiteboard, and we're not gonna go over that, but I will show where that option is, and it depends. I haven't tested out myself with an iPad, but if you use the iPad with the Apple Pencil or any other tablet with the stylus, I believe you will be able to use it. If you use the whiteboard right now, you will essentially have to use your mouse as the writing tool, which is not
Okay,
very
and
ideal.
finally, Christine asks, is there a policy on use of CUNY Zoom for personal use?
That's a good question. I'll defer to the on the Zoom document that I shared. There is a CUNY Cloud System feature guide for faculty. It's not an easy question to answer straightforward, unfortunately. I would refer you to this document. It's on the Google Doc that I shared, and it's the number 5 under background information. This will give you more information as to how CUNY uses the different platforms. Perhaps you can find the answer there. In my personal opinion, as long as you can use it for work-related stuff, I think you will be fine. But obviously, with Zoom giving you a full range of features, there's an advantage for using that instead. I want to quickly go over to the report section. Again, this was all on the settings, everything that I went over a moment ago. And then under reports, all of this on the website, all of this on the website. If I go into the reports tab and I go into the usage right here, and I want to go back to that question that someone asked about attendance, under usage, you will be able to see some information about the people who joined your specific meetings. It's important to note that these reports are available for 30-day periods. In other words, if you want to, in December, look for a meeting that happened in September, you're not going to find that. So you always have to make sure that if you're looking at the reports and specifically the usage, that you look at within that period of time. So let me just look and give you an example. I want to look for a class that happened on the 12th. And as you can see, this will give me a lot of information right here. And I just want to make sure that I am looking at this particular one. This is a class that I had. And as you can see, this will tell me the duration of the meeting, in this case, 108 minutes, and then the participants, 30. So if I click on this, I will be able to see all of the information of the participants. And this will help you with attendance. However, like I said, it's always tricky, especially when you have users who joined from devices that are not theirs. You will not be able to see their names unless you ask them to rename themselves. And you can also see that there may be multiple people who join multiple times because they may have had a connection problem. So you can check this option, show unique users, and then Zoom will tell you the username and the amount of minutes that they were on the call. So you can use this again for attendance purposes. I said a moment ago that you would have to look at it carefully, and I repeat that again because you would have to make sure that all of your students are named properly with their first name and last name so that you can recognize them. Again, if you go to reports and you go to usage, you will be able to find all of the information that I just posted a moment ago. When you look at this, you always have to remember you have a 30-minute period. So the reports are always a month. So if you're looking for something that happened more than a month ago, you will not find that. You can toggle the columns right here if you don't want to have a lot of information on it. Let's say that I don't want, let's say the department, the group, I don't want this, I don't want that. And then I don't want that. So you see, I minimized and filtered my list. So I'm able to quickly see this. So in my case, I will be able to look at the number of participants and how long my meeting was. So this is an option for you to use for your attendance purposes. We want to move ahead and with the scheduling the meeting. And if you go to your meetings, it's always helpful to schedule meetings that are recurring, but you're always given the option to choose and schedule one single meeting at a time. Still on the same website, all right, on your profile, you log into Zoom. We first went to settings to look at the main settings of your account. We then went to reports, and now we're gonna go to meetings. Pretty straightforward. You're going to see a list of your meetings. In this case, you see this because this is a meeting that is currently happening. And if you see the button on the right, you will be able to see schedule meeting. And this is where the magic happens. You can go ahead and schedule, let's say that I want to schedule a meeting for my one-on-one class. You can opt into putting a description. You don't necessarily have to. Someone asked about the URL, and that's what's going to be key here. So we don't have to necessarily put a description. I'm just going to change this so that I don't get confused. FYS 101. We're going to skip using a template for a moment. And let's say that my class is going to be this Saturday at 1 p.m. Okay. The duration of my class will be 1 hour and 30 minutes. So I cannot put 30-minute increments here, but I can here. I have noticed that even if you have this meeting for it to be 1.5 hours, if you stay longer in the meeting, if you stay longer in the meeting, it will not cut you off, okay? You can continue running the meeting. If you're the host, there's no restriction there. It's also important to know that for basic free users on Zoom, there was a restriction of 40 minutes, and a lot of faculty raised this concern back in the spring. This is no longer the case because we now have an institutional license and there's no restriction on the time, okay? I think there is a restriction, it's up to 24 hours, but unless you want to have a class that's longer than that, I think you will be good. So I selected my time and date. Now here is where I can click on recurring, and I can, if this is every Saturday, I can simply choose to put this on weekly and then repeat every 1 week, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. I want this to happen on a weekly basis, and I want this to happen on Saturdays only. And you can either have, let's say, if you choose this option, that means that you're going to have 12 sessions from the moment that you start, or you can choose this. And if you look at the academic calendar, which is what I do, I know I'm going to finish classes by the 19th. So, I can go ahead and choose that. For the purposes of this example, I'm just going to choose until next week.
Excuse me.
Yes.
How do you set up if you wanted, say, for instance, 15 minutes, like to start at start at 1 o'clock, 1:15 instead of 1 o'clock? How do you do that?
Oh, that's a good, well, if you, I think you are
1
able to,
o'clock. How do you set up like 1:15?
I think you are able to type in the time. No. I would say if you don't have the option, it doesn't seem that I have the option here. I would say just put the option, just put it at 1 o'clock and then just start the meeting at 1:15. So make sure that you tell your students you're sharing the link and then you tell them we're going to start at 1:15 and that same link will be fine. If you don't start the meeting at 1 as it is right here, it's not that the meeting will be canceled. You simply will start the meeting at 1:15. That's it. It doesn't seem that I'm able to put that
Yeah,
time
but
here.
they should have that feature because it makes sense.
That's correct. Yeah, we can certainly relay that, but the workaround, you can still set the meeting for 1 o'clock and simply start at 1:15.
The reason I say that because one of my classes starts at 9:15.
Yeah. Plenty of classes to start at the 15-minute mark. So the workaround, the good thing though is that in Zoom, even if you set the time here, you don't necessarily have to either start or end at that time. You can start that meeting at any time. So if
Okay.
you set this at 1 o'clock, you can start at 1:30. You can tell your students, unfortunately, I'm running late, we're going to start at 1:30. That meeting will still work. And if you want to start early at 12:30, you can start at 12:30 and that will still work.
Yeah, Pablo. So Christine and Vanessa said in the chat that they were able to type in like the
Okay.
15-minute interval.
Okay, so maybe it's something with my browser that every time I type in 1:15, it bounces back to 1 o'clock. Yeah. And again, for the purposes of this, you can either choose how many occurrences you want, meaning how many times you want this meeting to happen, or you can set an end date. I want this to end by this date. This is the option that I was talking about in the settings, the passcode. So make sure that you enable the passcode. The waiting room, it's recommended. However, make sure that you're aware that you're going to have to allow students in once they come into the session because they're going to be in the waiting room. I personally do not do this because I know that I share this with my class only and I don't share it with anyone else. So I let my students in and they are able to bypass the waiting room. The waiting room is helpful when you use this for any other type of meeting or office hours. Level 2 will cover office hours. Okay. This video options by default are good as they are. This means that the host, you as the host, will enter the meeting with the video off, but you can always choose to turn it on later once you are in the meeting. The same for students. You can always turn this off and then give them the option to turn that on during the meeting. In the audio, this allows you to either users who are joining from a cell phone, from a telephone, or from a computer device, or from both. It's always helpful to keep it in both because you never know, unless you know and you are certain that all of your students have devices, computer devices. And if that's the case, you can simply choose to computer audio. But at least I always recommend, for the purposes of being inclusive of everyone, to keep it in both. And the last meeting options are going to be enable the join before host. I never recommend that personally for classes because you always want to be the one who opens it up and you just don't want students to get there before you. This is a personal recommendation, but it's up to you. The enable join before host means that the host has to start the meeting for anyone to join. If someone tries to enter a meeting and the host has not started that, they will be given, they will see a message that says waiting for the host to start. So that's also always up to you. Mute participants upon entry. It's always helpful to do that, especially for new users who may not be familiar with how to mute themselves and there may be background noise. So I always choose to do this. And again, even if you choose this, it does not mean that students are unable to unmute themselves. They are able to unmute themselves. This is just the setting, the default setting once they enter the meeting. And then you go ahead and click save. And we've reviewed all of this already. After we click save, we're going to see the link to share, and that will respond to the question that was presented a moment ago. So now that I hit save, I have my class created. And here's something that you can see if you're scheduling a meeting with recurring events. If you take a look at the time right here, you can click on show all occurrences, and then you will be able to see every single occurrence that you've created. So you can go ahead and alter or even delete some. Let's say that on the 3rd, in the end, we're not meeting. I can simply go ahead and delete that. Now, this is the link that if someone was asking about sharing. So you can simply copy this link, copy the address, and then post it. Either you can send it via email, or you can send it via via your Blackboard course. A lot of faculty were asking this. Do I have to share this link every single week? In this case, I have 2 classes that I've scheduled right now, this 26th and the 3rd. The link will serve for both. Okay, the link will serve for both. So I don't have to be sharing this every single week. So what I'm going to do is, for the purposes of this example, I'm going to show you an example Blackboard course, a sample Blackboard course, what I personally do in my courses. Again, you can choose to email this to your students as well. That will work. It's never recommended to post this on any public website, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, for security reasons, because you don't want any user to enter your meeting without being welcome. So let's say that this is now on Blackboard, and this is all being recorded in case you are not sure how to follow, or you need more time. On my Blackboard course, what I'm going to use is I'm going to use a web link. Okay, I'm going to use a web link, and I'm going to put here something that will resonate with them: Zoom sessions. You can opt in to put weekly classes or whatever whatever will make you think that your students will always go there. And then under URL, I simply go ahead and post this. I'm going to check available to users so that I make sure that when I'm posting this link, it will be right away available to my students. So again, I'm adding a web link. I'm putting a name that will be straightforward to them, and then I'm putting the one link. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and click on submit, and then I'm just going to put this all the way on the top because I want my students to see it right away. So if I go into my student preview, once they enter my class, they're going to see Zoom sessions right here, and when they click on it, they will be directed to that link to enter my meeting. This is one strategy that we recommend. Someone asked if Blackboard is going to enable a tool link as it does for Blackboard Collaborate and so forth. Right now, it's not implemented from what I was told, but it will be in the future. But the workaround is to put right here a web link. And if you put the web link, you enter the name that you want it to display in the menu, the URL right here, make it available to users, and then you will have something like this. And then that one link will work in my case, every Saturday at 1 p.m. Okay. And again, if you're scheduling this meeting and you say, well, my meeting, my session, my class is not at 1, but it's at 1:15, you can still tell them, join at 1:15, we'll be there, and you will be able to access the meeting. Okay, I'm looking at the time. Are there any specific questions at this point?
Yeah. So Martha asked, how do you see how long each student stayed in the class?
That's going to be on the reports, and I will refer. It's going to be on your main page, on your main account. You go into reports, and then you go into usage. And then under usage, you simply look for the meeting that you're looking for, your class that you're looking for. And then you will see the duration of the entire meeting and then the number of participants. If you click on the number of participants, then you will be prompted with a link that will show you how many minutes each person was on it. So let me go ahead and unshare this. And the next thing that I want to do is I want to share my entire desktop screen. As I share this, now you should be able to see my entire Zoom environment, and you will probably see yourself there. We're doing this for the purposes of showing you how to navigate your meetings. One of the things that I always do is always recommend faculty that they look at this option right here, either the speaker view or the gallery view. Okay, in this case, the speaker view will always highlight the person who's speaking. In this case, you can see there's a green because my colleague has been participating here. And then if you go and switch over to the gallery, you will be able to see more video thumbnails. Depending on the screen resolution that you have, I am currently on a MacBook Pro 13-inch. So I'm only able to see probably 30 of you right now. I'm not seeing any more. And I can go ahead and toggle to the second page if I want to see more people, okay? Obviously, if you have a bigger screen, a bigger monitor, you will be able to see many more people. I believe Zoom allows users to see up to 49 video thumbnails, as you see my screen, if you are on gallery mode, okay? One of the nice features that Zoom recently released a couple of days ago is the feature of rearranging video thumbnails. So as you can see, I see myself right here, and I can just move myself right here and rearrange my colleague right here if I want to have a better view of my class. This is available if you update your client to the version 5.3. If you're trying to do this and for some reason it doesn't work, probably will not work because you still have to update your browser to 5.3 version, and I will show you how to do that in just a moment. I want to go back to, yes.
Can you show how to basically set a private chat? So like, basically like a student can chat with just like, like the professor and not the other students.
Yep. So, so let me jump to that then first. So if I go, as you can see on my screen, I'm going to go ahead and open the chat. One of the cool, probably the default options as you see it once you enter the room is if you click on the chat, it will simply pop up to the window as you see it on my screen. I always recommend go right here and then merge to meeting window so that I can have a better organization of my screen. So in this button right here, and then merge to meeting window. Right here, I will be able to see all of the chat on the side and the the video thumbnails on the left. The chat is incredibly helpful because I can keep asking my students questions and they can keep participating. However, personally, one of the limitations that I always see is that it's always merging everything. So for instance, if I want to send a message only to my colleague Derek, I'm just going to go ahead and chat right here. It's telling me right now that it's private. So I can just, put a message that's only to him, and that's going to send the message straight to him. But then if other people continue to participate, there's no way to ping those conversations. So if you open the chat, it will be basically to chat with everyone. You toggle back and then you send a message to everyone. And then, you will simply not see it privately. It will be a message to everyone. So it's not that you can set up multiple channels. You simply open the chat and then you will be able to chat with everyone. The option right here is for you as the host to save the chat. Remember that on the settings, we clicked on that option. So you save the chat and then this will generate a simple .txt file that will give you all the text that has happened on the chat. It will also allow you to see the options for that you can set for your participants. So participants can chat with. I can always set to no one, meaning that you can only interact with me. I'm sorry that I disable it. The host only is that you can send messages to me only and not to everyone. And then everyone publicly, meaning you can post messages that everyone will see. So all of the options are right here as well. If you see also, there's the file button, and this is what we checked on the settings. If you click on it, you will be able to send files to your students if you want. If you do not see that, it's probably because you didn't enable it on the settings page. Derek, I think you have a question.
Oh yeah, yeah. So there's a couple that you probably see in the chat. So Kathleen asked like, what are authenticated users? And then Sean and Vanessa asked like two kind of similar questions. It's like, how do you pre-record part of the class and like show it once the class begins, and then how can you post recorded sessions for students to view?
So I'll tackle the first question first. Authenticated users, and maybe Ramesh can confirm this, but authenticated users means that they have to log in and sign into their Zoom accounts if they want to join your meeting. So if someone is just downloading the app or joining your your meeting, your session with the URL or the meeting ID only, they will not be able to join because they have not logged in. It means that Zoom is forcing the user to log in with an actual user, whether it's their personal or the CUNY one, in order for them to join the session that you are sharing with
Yeah,
them.
that's
So
correct.
I never recommend. Thank you very much. I never recommend doing that because many of my students are not very familiar with it, so that can place a burden on them and say, oh, I cannot join it because they have to log in. But it's totally up to you. Okay. The second question, how to pre-record, it essentially works exactly like what I am doing. The only difference would be that you would be the only one in the meeting. So I don't have anyone I can share my screen and you know, record to the cloud or to my local computer, and then the recording controls are going to be right here at the bottom. I can pause, I can stop, and then that will generate a file later on that you can then share via Dropbox. So there isn't any different mechanism other than very similar to when you're conducting a class. I'm going to show very quickly how to access those recordings because I'm looking at the time. I'm going to show those settings just so that I make sure I cover that question. I want to also to see to show you the nonverbal feedback. If you hover over right here under reactions, you should be able to see, if you enable that on your settings, some type of emojis that sometimes when you're asking people, how are you doing today? Everybody good? Or does anybody have any questions? Everybody good? They can always check here and then just give you a thumbs up without them necessarily having to unmute themselves and say, hey, yeah, I'm good. I use it as a strategy also to keep students on track and say, how's everybody doing? Was that clear? And then give me a thumbs up. And then I see the thumbs up. I see the thumbs up on the screen, or the applause, or whichever emoji. If you hit on the participants tab right here, you will be able to see the participants also, the participants who are joining right here. I always choose to merge this with my window, as you can see right here, for the purposes of me having a better organization as best as I can in this 13-inch screen. And you can see that in some cases, if someone does not know how to rename themselves, if you hover over that user, you can always choose the option rename. This has happened at least to me multiple times when I ask the students to rename themselves. They don't know how to do it. So I go ahead, and once that I identify them, I can go ahead and click rename and rename them so that I can have a good view, an accurate view of who is in my class. Also, there is this additional nonverbal feedback right here, which will allow you to say, is everybody like following along? And then you can simply hit yes, and then that will give me a cue to me on my participants tab, knowing that you are either following along, or you can also choose to go slower, go faster. It really depends. All of these features are so that you can interact with your class as best as you can and keep them engaged. I want to show the client for just a moment because I want to show some of the features right here. So if I go into my Zoom account, and this is the client that I recommended at the very beginning that you download, it's up to you, but if you're able to download, it will allow you to have all of your information ready on your computer without necessarily having to log in every single time. On a Mac, you can go into preferences right here, but if you are on a Windows, you simply click on your picture and then it will take you to settings. So it really depends. I'm working on a Mac right now, but if you're on a Windows, simply click on your picture and then go into your settings if you have downloaded the client. If you have not, you should consider that. Right here, there's multiple options. I'm only going to highlight a couple. I'm going to go straight to backgrounds because this is the one that I mentioned. Virtual background, it's always an option. I'm using one of the virtual backgrounds that the college has provided. There's a Flickr account, Flickr URL on the Google Doc that I shared that allows you to access all of these images. And if you go into your settings, go into background filters, you simply click on add an image, and then you will load this as you would upload an image to an email as an attachment. You will then see your image here, and you will be able to toggle between images, as you can see right here. I chose this one for this particular session. There's also some video filters that if you have your updated Zoom version, you will be able to play around with. And these are also very good strategies for keeping students engaged. I always ask them and tell them, where would you rather be right now during class? Show me a picture, and then sometimes they show me pictures on the beach, and they're and in different places. So it's a good way to engage students if they choose to turn their cameras on. Okay, that's important to know. Oh, I should have gone to settings and
Paulo, real quick, can you show how to set up groups within Zoom, if that's covered here?
That is the breakout groups. The breakout groups, if you choose the option to enable that, that's going to be covered in the second workshop. So I'll invite you to join to that session because of our time. But if you enable that option, I assume you're talking about the breakout groups, you will be able to see the options right here. Because of the size of my screen, you will see it under more. But it's the breakout groups, and then it will allow you to create the breakout groups for your class. There's an option that now Zoom allows participants to choose a room, which is really cool. I'm looking forward to testing that. They released that a couple of days ago. I haven't fully tested it, but every user will have to be updated to their latest version on Zoom, which is the version 5.3. If you have not updated your Zoom account, probably this is a good way to show you. I'm just going to go right here. In my Mac, if you're looking for that on the Mac, you will simply go into check for updates, and then it will show you what the update that you have, if you have any. But if not, as in my case, it will show me that I have the latest one. If you are on a Windows, the option will be somewhere on your picture right here. If you are working on a Windows computer, check for updates right here at the bottom.
Going back to the backgrounds real quick, do you have to download the backgrounds, or are they already there by default?
You would have to download the backgrounds, and if I go quickly right here to Zoom resources, the virtual background is number 9, resource number 9. So if you go right here, this is what the college put together for everyone to use. So you would just go into the picture that you want, and then you right click, and then you save the picture. And then once you save the picture, it will be on your desktop, and then you go back to your Zoom settings, backgrounds and filters, backgrounds right here, and then click add image. You can also add a video. I haven't tested that, but you can add an image, and then you will simply browse for the file wherever you saved it, download folder anywhere, and then it will become available to you to choose at a different time. So if you feel like you want to use this one this time around, you can simply go into your settings, change that, and now suddenly I have a different background. So I always use multiple backgrounds in my classes as well. Now you can see I have a different one. I want to make sure that I cover this CUNY Dropbox. If you go into the document that I shared with you, resource number number 13 will allow you to see all of the information for Dropbox. So this is the page that I will direct you to, and then you simply log into Dropbox with the same login credentials that you used to log into Zoom. So it's important that you remember those login credentials. Once you're logging into your Dropbox, which will look something like this, Ramesh confirmed that we have 1 TB of storage, which is amazing because you can share so much. So this is an example of a folder that I created. Every time that I create a recording, I just go into my files that I will show you in a moment. I upload my files in here. As you can see, there's an example one. And then I simply can choose to share folder. And if I go right here, I can simply create a folder so that students are able to view this with the link that I can share with them. So anyone with the link will be able to access this. So, and then how do I post that link, you may be wondering? Well, it will be very similar to the link that I did for creating a Zoom, creating the Zoom link. So if I go into the toolkit, I can choose web link. And then in this case, I can just put this recordings. I will put my Dropbox link right here, make it available to users, and then it will be ready. And every time they click on it, they will be directed to that folder on Dropbox. Do they have to log in to see the Dropbox folder? They do not if you set the options to that. And I linked also a webinar that you can watch a specific segment on that in the resource document so that you can see how that's done. You simply go into your folder, share folder, and then you can choose this anyone with the link. Or you can even set this for people with the password. If you don't want everyone to see the recordings, you can give them a password. There's plenty of options in this page. You can even set an expiration date. Let's say that you want them to have access to this only until December the 19th, when the semester is over. It's totally up to you. You can restrict downloads. So if the students want to download their files, you can also turn that off and disable that. So there's plenty of options that you can explore here. And again, all of this will allow you to save your local recordings into your Dropbox folder without necessarily having to max out your storage on your Blackboard course. I want to show you very quickly something on the settings that I forgot. If I go into a audio share screen, recording right here. Remember that at the very beginning of the session, I said that cloud recording is limited. So faculty are encouraged to record on locally on their computers. You can always go into your settings. If you choose, if you click on recording, you will be able to see the location in your computer where the local recording will be. Okay. So you can, by default, Zoom will create a folder in your documents folder in your drive, but you can always change this and you can always change this to another location. Let's say that you have an external hard drive. I have spoken to people who have concerns about storage on their devices only already. So what I recommend is put it on the desktop, upload it to Dropbox, and once you have it on Dropbox, delete the files of your desktop and then keep everything on your Dropbox. That was
Pablo,
a recommendation.
real quick.
Yeah.
So like when you log in through like the way you showed at the beginning, it should give you like it's not going to be like the free version that kicks you out, right? After for like 40 minutes.
Correct. And you can, once you log into your Zoom account, I think some people were talking about this. If you already had an account, what you might want to do is go into zoom.us and then you can log out of that account. You can always check which account you are by going into your picture right there. So if you log into the web, as I mentioned at the beginning, you will click right here and then this will show you the type of license that you have. In this case, it's a licensed access that I have. With this, I know this is my CUNY account. In case you go here and then you see your personal account, Gmail, Outlook, whatever it is, you can always hit sign out and then log in again so that you can see your CUNY account. I'm just going to do that for the purposes of demonstrating here. I'm not signing here, and then I'm just going to hit signing. Now, if you put in your Outlook here, it's not going to work. What you have to do in this particular case, it's signing with SSO. That's what IT instructed, and the instructions are there. Simply click here. It's going to ask you what's your company name. I work in CUNY. So continue, and then it would show me this. And once I go ahead and log in, then it will take me straight to my page. And I can go ahead and click on my picture again, and I make sure that I am on my CUNY account.
Okay, that's what like where you clicked before, just now, like that shows like what version or
Correct.
like license it's on, right? Okay.
Correct. Now, if you're still seeing your personal account, you can sign out. My recommendation, and this will vary. My recommendation would be clear your cookies of your browser. Sometimes browser stores accounts automatically and passwords if you enable that. So I would suggest clear the cookies, clear the passwords, and then start fresh. Depending on the browser that you use, Firefox, Chrome, it really depends on the browser that you use. I would suggest clear your cookies and then you will be good. Let me Okay, so I believe you are seeing my screen now. So we've covered all of this. Some final recommendations as we wrap up. We're 5 minutes over, but we're going to wrap up shortly. It's always recommended to turn on your camera when you start the meeting and turn it back on manually. Okay, and it's always recommended if you choose to turn your camera on. If your students are choosing to turn their cameras on, consider virtual backgrounds. It's always helpful, and the college provides some nice images. The nonverbal feedback, it's helpful to keep students engaged. At least I've tried my best in using it that way, and so far I've had positive outcomes. The breakout room, which will be covered in level 2, will be covered in level 2, and you're welcome to sign up to that. Yes, Derek.
Oh, yeah, sort of related to like the camera recommendations. Somebody asked if like is there a recommendation about like what kind of audio to use, because like when she logs in, the system will ask if you want to use the computer sound or like the phone audio.
That's a good question. And the computer audio, it's always the default and it works fine. However, if you're only working on the computer audio, you might want to be cognizant, whether it's you or your students, of their surroundings. If they are in a place where there's a lot of background noise, the computer, the device is going to pick up all of that. In my case, I have a wired headset right now. Wired, it's always recommended in case people have sometimes their AirPods that are wireless. They work, but sometimes it's always better to have a wire cable like I am. This is my audio, this is my mic. It works just fine. Now, if you do not have one, the computer will work just fine. So that is going to be the default. I have found that that works just as efficient as anything else, unless you have a lot of background noise. Yeah. Setting up your CUNY Dropbox account, all of that information, it's on the Google Doc that I shared. And as you can see, if you want to go back to the recording afterwards so that you can see, you set up your folder on Dropbox, click the share button, share it with anyone with the link, and then put that link on your Blackboard course. That will save you a lot of space and time when it comes to uploading files to your Blackboard course. Consider students to ask to have a physical notebook. That's always, if you don't already, I'm sure many of you do, but I always tell my students, even though distance learning is fully digital, most of the time digital, it's always good to have a physical notebook for them to have notes and take notes and all that. And update your desktop client and mobile apps regularly. That's always recommended because either there are new features, as some of the ones that I showcased, or there are security issues that are addressed. And it's always helpful to make sure that you don't run into any problems when it comes to Zoom. Okay. Questions?
Yes, a few more questions.
And I'm happy to stay as long as people are able to stay too. Yes.
Number 1, when is the next Zoom workshop? And number 2, where is it? Is like the meeting ID and password good for like the entire semester?
If you create a recurring, there is no distinction of semester, meaning for the fall, for the spring. As long as you create a recurring meeting for a specific set of time, that meeting ID and the passcode will be enough for those number of recurrences. It's not that it's for the fall only or for the fall and the spring. Zoom doesn't have that distinction. If you set your meetings to be for 12 weeks starting on September 1st, then that meeting link and the passcode and the meeting ID will be for those specific sessions that you have scheduled. The next workshop is going to be at 2 o'clock. So I'm going to pop this link on the chat in case you haven't already. And my colleague has been helping me monitoring the chat. So I apologize if you sent something only to me and I didn't get to see it. We're trying to schedule as many as we can as possible so that we can help faculty. Yes.
Can you share the link for all the resources, please?
Yes, sure. I shared the link. Sure. I shared the link for the Zoom. And now I'm going to share the link for, the Google Doc. So you click on that Google Doc, it's publicly available. You're welcome to share that with others. This is going to be available as well later today so that others can get to view the session if they weren't available.
Thank you.
Any final questions, Eric?
I believe that is it. Let me just double check.
I see a question. How do I sign up for the next session? Please, the link is right in the chat. I put a Zoom registration link for the 1 or 2 o'clock, the level 2. You can sign up for either. There's one right now at 2 o'clock. There's another one tomorrow. There's 2 more next week. And we're going to try to make room for additional sessions. We're trying to juggle a lot. So we're going to do our best to continue to offer more sessions. Okay, so if that is it, thank you so very much for attending our session. We appreciate your time. We hope this was helpful in any way. The recording will be available so that you are able to go back and watch specific segments. I will make sure that I get in touch with you via email with this and the other resources that we spoke about. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Derek, for your help. Thank you, Ramesh, for coming into the session and providing helpful support. And I will
No
see you
problem.
all, if not in the next session. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, bye.